He's the commissioner of the SEC. Greg Sankey's back with us. Commissioner, thanks for joining us. How would you recap the weekend in the SEC?
Well, I'll try not to add to your frustration on a Monday morning. How about if I start there? Really, with the issues of the day, you go back to a statement I made Thursday night about being past time for change to the state flag in Mississippi. You saw, just to cover all the bases, reports about quarantining around COVID-19 on some of our campuses. Not necessarily all positive tests. I think we have to be intentional about how we communicate. Saturday, in fact, it wasn't until Sunday I saw a group of football players from Ole Miss post a video, take a stand on the need for change on a monument that appears in the square in Oxford. So I think that's real life in 2020, isn't it? That's exactly the type of issues we're dealing with. It's unprecedented in some ways, but a reality that change is a constant in our life, whether we want to acknowledge that change or not.
Can Ole Miss continue to be Ole Miss?
Oh, sure. I think that's up to them. There's a lot going on right now in those conversations. I think I look at it at my responsibility as a conference commissioner, because we have so much that can go on. We have championships. We'll go out to bid soon. We have others that rotate. That I needed to take that stand, and I know that their chancellor and their campus leadership has worked hard on these issues. And when you have things in place for years, sometimes it takes time to work through everything. Go back to, the banning of sticks as a way to deal with the flag issue back in the 90s. And that was the leadership needed then. And we've got a different type of leadership expectation now.
The number of positive tests over the weekend, can you explain the process? Do coaches have to tell you what has happened on their campus with their football teams?
No, we don't rely on our coaches for that information. We have a weekly call with a medical advisory committee, a group we've been working with for several months now. And those are medical leaders tied either to their athletics program or their university. So we'll receive updates there. And again, I think that's where it's important to understand there's testing outcomes, and then there is essentially tracing outcomes where, because of potential contacts, quarantining takes place, even though someone may not have tested positive for COVID-19.
What kind of options are you looking at for this season?
Yeah, I described this as a marathon, and really I caught the end of your previous segment on the return to activities that may or may not happen in Major League Baseball or in other sports. I know they're all preparing for that. We're living that reality. We're dealing literally with voluntary athletic related activities. And we know that within our facilities, we can provide the kind of care and oversight that guides people in the right way, keeps them healthy. We're also learning that 19 and 20-year-olds will do what 19 and 20-year-olds do, and that is maybe not listen to all the advice that exists. I think their immunity level or their strength and conditioning can prevent them from being having a positive test or contracting the virus. And I think that's a lesson that everyone still has to learn, that the discussions about masks and how we maintain our health, these are real issues that help us move forward. We're still months away from what could be the potential kickoff. That's our focus. But as I've said repeatedly, we have to prepare to adjust to the circumstances, just like we're adjusting right now after the last 4 or 5 days.
What will those adjustments, what are the possibilities? And maybe you don't want to get into hypotheticals, to be fair to you, but everybody's optimistic about this, Commissioner, but man, I don't know. I have serious doubts about how we're going to pull any of this off. I really am.
And nobody on my side of the microphone when you're asked questions has been overly optimistic, and I'm certainly realistic. It is a marathon, and I don't know where the finish line is. And in my life, I finished 41 marathons, and at least I knew, with the exception of one where they mismeasured, that the finish line was 26.2 miles. You can imagine my frustration. How I knew it felt longer than it was. And here we know there's a finish line, but where is it? And so, Dan, I have to look at this as each step. And a couple of weeks ago, we opened up our athletic facilities again, voluntary activities. What you're seeing now in the news is a reaction to the plans that were put in place. Today is another milestone. The NCAA made a decision to allow an elevated level of practice, I'll call it, come July 13th. I think that's the next stage. And right around that time, we'll have to come to some conclusions on whether we can move forward as planned or not.
Was this planned or this was expected that you would have these kids test positive?
Well, it was prepared for. The
Okay.
goal was never to expect zero. That's just not reality around us. It is to the plan was test when they arrive. We had positive tests when people came back, and we have embedded medical professionals in our athletics program. That's part of what I think gets missed is the level of care provided for young people on our campuses on a daily basis. And then there was preparation for the what ifs. And so those hypotheticals that I have avoided answering are very much a part of planning. What do we do if a bunch of people go to a party where someone tests positive? You're going to be in quarantine. What do we do if there's a positive test? What do we do when they come back? How many people can be allowed in a facility? What is the spacing? What is the expectation when you walk in and leave? What is the continuing reinforcement about the education provided that, well, you made it through 1 week, doesn't mean you'll make it through 2 unless you take care of yourselves. And there are no guarantees. You can go back to March where we all thought we were playing basketball tournaments and March Madness would happen. And we made assumptions, and we have fewer assumptions made. And that's why we have to prepare for a whole set of contingencies.
We talked about it last time. And if you can give me an update, will the SEC maybe just have conference games? Is the game plan to have just conference games, or is it a full slate?
We've gone through. I think we're just short of 20 scenarios. The plan, the focus is to prepare to play as scheduled, and then to pivot off of that. And there are any number of options that could allow an entire schedule to be played, both conference and non-conference. But everybody in this country has to be a part of that at the collegiate level. That's just a little bit more complex than, say, the NFL putting its schedule out or delaying, because all of those things are controlled by a central entity. So I think we'll keep that focus, but we'll plan for contingencies that could be, probably anything you read about from a speculative standpoint.
Maybe just Alabama and LSU play 12 times. How's that?
I can take one of those a year. I assure you, one of those a year. Imagine the stress level in my life varies. Right now, it's an odd summer of stress, but I don't know about one of those every week.
Commissioner, thank you. We appreciate your time, and good luck.
Well, I appreciate the continued conversation. Thank you.
That's Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC.